All right, Steve, we're going to start with you. I give you carte blanche, not even a question. Highs, lows, storylines, wherever you want to take this thing on Pro Day.
Yeah, I think people were very impressed with what Justin Fields was able to do yesterday. He really got rolling once he got warmed up, and obviously it helps having great talent out there throwing the ball to with Olave and Wilson, who were volunteering to help their buddy a little bit on Pro Day and also show themselves off to the NFL scouts, even though they'll be back at Ohio State this fall. I think he was impressive. And I think Trey Sermon was impressive. And obviously, Tommy Togiai to do 40 reps on the bench press. That's not something that's usually hit at the combine. I think the record was 49 by a defensive tackle from Washington State about 10 years ago. And really, Tommy was trying to push for that, but didn't quite get that high. But still very impressive and shows why he decided to come out. He is ready to go for the NFL. And some people question it was a middle round pick. And I'm not sure that's going to propel him to the first round. I think Ohio State's got the record right now for the most first rounders. They moved past USC either last year or the year before. And they may only have one this year with Justin Fields, so they're not going to pad their lead a whole lot this year, it doesn't seem like. But it's a pretty solid draft group. I think they'll end up probably 7 to 10 guys ultimately being selected, pretty much as always. And the beat just goes on over there at the Ohio State College when it comes to producing great talent.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I was flipping between ESPN, BTN, and NFL Network yesterday watching the Pro Day because local media was not invited. It was a small event in terms of coverage, shared feeds, and all that good stuff, all those insider TV terms. But they were saying that, if a couple things go right, up to 11 Buckeyes could potentially go. But, you never know. Once you kind of get down to 6, 7 rounds, it's kind of a crapshoot, and sometimes you're better off being an undrafted free agent at that point and kind of pick your opportunity there. But as Steve had said, put aside from the Justin Fields, which was really the big focal point of why everybody wanted to watch yesterday, and it was kind of dueling quarterbacks with Mac Jones at Alabama throwing about a half hour earlier than Justin Fields, and everybody comparing the two of them. I think that a player like Baron Browning really made himself a lot of money going out there, showing a lot of explosive testing numbers. I mean, he just looked really good out there in what he was doing. Tommy Togiai came up a little bit short of trying to break the bench record. Had the opportunity to see the video of it. The first 36 to 38 of them, he just put up like nothing, and then it just kind of slowed down at that point. But I think I pulled a couple muscles just watching it, but. It was just really a good opportunity to see these guys out there being able to compete. And again, as Steve had said, with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson out there and Jamison Williams as well running routes, Garrett Wilson made, a Garrett Wilson type of catch. And I guarantee you all the NFL personnel of the 31 teams that were represented were like, yeah, we already know about this guy. And, fast forward 365 days or whatever. And Garrett Wilson certainly will be on a lot of draft boards.
Yeah, I like Tommy Togiai was asked yesterday, did you feel like you could get to 49? I think we can all relate when he's like, well, you just never know if you're going to get 40 or 49 reps of that 225. It just, as you're going, it just you figure out where you're going to land as you start to fatigue. So, yeah, we all get that. I do wonder, the guy who told Gil Brandt that Justin Fields was a 4th rounder, I'm wondering if yesterday's performance moves him up into the 3rd round, possibly. I think there's a shot there if somebody takes a flyer on him, hey, why not? We've got 2/3. Let's throw one way on Justin Fields, and maybe that team can, surprise themselves. I think what we saw from Justin Fields, and Ryan Day said he was showing off at the end, this is stuff that I don't think surprised anybody on the Ohio State beat, watching him make whatever throw you wanted to it. I saw somebody mention on Twitter how they like how these pro days have turned into like trick shot competitions with the quarterbacks. And that's what you saw a little bit with Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. No surprise that they're both trained by the same guy, John Beck, a former BYU quarterback, which I think is a conflict of interest here between these two. But, as Kevin said, Baron Browning putting up, I saw numbers where it was, one of the 5 most athletic linebackers that these tracking companies have ever seen, of like, 1,100 linebackers of the last however many years of the NFL, where that he's in the top 5 all time with what he did. And then to hear him say afterwards, like, teams are looking at him as a rush end, defensive end, talking to Jonathan Cooper, teams are looking at me as a linebacker, that kind of juxtaposition. But I think Baron Browning can do whatever. He did say some teams are looking at him as like a middle linebacker and then situational pass rusher. I don't know if that's best for him, because that wasn't what was best for him at Ohio State. You get him outside and let him do some stuff out there. I think that's where he would excel. Or maybe a 3-4 inside linebacker, which is a little bit different than a 4-3 inside linebacker. And then Jonathan Cooper being a 3-4 outside linebacker. Probably these guys are versatile, and the more versatile you can be, the better chance you have of hanging on. So, and then Pete Werner, again, I chuckled during the Big Ten Network broadcast when they said, well, he looked pretty fast, and, there's kind of this stigma that he's stiff, but you can't blame him for getting beat by Devontae Smith in the national championship game. And it's like, well, that wasn't even him. It's the wrong linebacker that you're accusing of being stiff. But another good day for Pete Werner, which also I think a lot of people on the Ohio State beat expected.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question, Tony. You mentioned relating to the Tommy Togiai bench press mark. I just want to let everyone know that being in the close for all of us belie the struggle that we each have there on the bench press. That's in that 40 to 50 range. Whether it's a good day or a bad day. It depends. And to your point, Steve, in projecting about 10 to be the draft total, somewhere in that range for the Buckeyes. Hopefully they can they made Michigan their standard last year. It was a 10-10 tie with Michigan last year. So hopefully they can keep up with the Wolverines.
Yeah, the difference was most of Ohio State's 10 were taken when ESPN was still broadcasting the draft, and most of Michigan's 10 were when it was on NFL Network 7. So there's a little bit of a difference there. I'm kidding, of course. Anybody who gets a chance to go and play in the NFL, where you get drafted is really not all that important, other than if the higher drafted you are, they're going to give you more of a shot that first year. But the thing is, you get your foot in the door and you make yourself indispensable. And that's what guys like Justin Hilliard yesterday talked about. Could Urban Meyer give him a shot with the Jacksonville Jaguars, maybe as an undrafted free agent, to go down there and be a great special teams player like he was for Urban Meyer at Ohio State and Ryan Day. So, I'm of a mind that, again, it's not worth getting all upset or worried about where somebody is projected today. It's finding a good fit. And, we thought Dwayne Haskins had a great fit when he went to Washington, but then obviously they fired the coaching staff midway through his first year, and the wind starts blowing the different direction. And obviously he made some major mistakes off the field as well. And now, as I was talking to somebody today, maybe Pittsburgh's the place for him to be the heir apparent Ben Roethlisberger, but it's going to take a lot of hard work on his part to make that obviously work out. So, again,
to back you up, Steve.
Yep, go ahead.
I was just going to say, overwhelmingly, yes. We got to credit these guys, regardless of the school. Overwhelmingly talented, hardworking, usually do the right things on and off the field. So, regardless of whether they're drafted, that's not a knock on those individual Michigan players. But I certainly argued at some point during this process last year that it does matter and would play out in regards to measuring the impact at the next level of being a top 3 to 4 rounder versus being a 5th or 6th rounder. So those high Ohio State selections, yes, that is showing the difference between. That is just another indicator of the difference between, when you've got 2 of the top 3 selections and then another couple first rounders and then even filling up those second and third rounds versus everybody getting drafted in the back end of the draft. Yeah, that's showing the difference in the 2 programs. Another indicator.
I want to jump in here real quick because we're talking about Michigan, that team up north, depending on, I don't have to do push-ups when I mention their name, but what does it mean when they have players that were kind of middling players in college who then go to the league and get coaching and suddenly are playing a lot better? I mean, you sit there and you look at some of these guys who come out of there that, didn't necessarily flash, came in with 4 and 5 stars, whether it was Rivals or 247 or whatever ranking service you're using, kind of have a meh college career, get drafted, and then they blow up. I mean, just maybe another little bit of an indictment of what's been going on with Jim Harbaugh's coaching staff. And really something that I've said time and time again, that the development isn't there. I mean, they're getting these guys that have these very high ceilings, and they're only getting 20, 30, 35% out of them. And then once it becomes a job, and once they, things are a little bit different, they're starting to excel.
Rashawn Gary, prime example number 1 of that.
Yeah. Like Gary was 285 pounds, ran like a 4.57 at the combine. And you look at his numbers, and they're very pedestrian. And Michigan fans will say, "Well, it wasn't his role to go and get the quarterback." Well, then you put him in a dumb role. Like if his job as a 6'5", 280-pound defensive end who can run a 4.6, you don't send him to go get the quarterback. We just wanted him to hold the edge. Then you're using him wrong. And it's as Kevin said, it's an indictment on a lot of stuff. And I still think Jabril Peppers was drafted as much on hype as anything, because he didn't play safety at Michigan. When he did play safety, it wasn't very good. That's why they kept moving him down closer to the box. He started out as a corner, couldn't do that. Put him at safety, couldn't do that. Now let's put him in a hybrid role. And then you see he gets to the Browns and he has to play 40 yards off the ball just to be able to get somewhere on time. But yeah, there's all kinds of examples from Michigan. I still don't understand the Jeremy Mayfield hype. That has somewhat died down, the offensive tackle. I don't get the Kwity Paye stuff as a first rounder. No. He has done very little in terms of production. Maybe he's a great athlete, but I don't get it. And maybe that'll be a guy who blossoms once he gets out of Michigan. But he was never really that much of a difference maker outside of maybe like 3 or 4 games in his career.
Right, and some of those stats were put up in garbage time. He's a tremendous story. I had the chance to see the Rinaldi, whoever of the world, do the whole thing on there. He's a kid, regardless of what color blood is flowing through your veins, scarlet and gray, maize and blue. You have to be pulling for this kid. I mean, it's just a great story, but seeing him as like the top rush end or whatever on the board is questionable. But then again, maybe he'll go in the 4th round, since that seems to be where we're burying, obvious first-round picks.
Tony, you should think about doing a Michigan segment maybe once a week, or maybe a particular day. Set that aside for some Michigan talk.
Let me work on something alliterative and see if we can't come up with something.
It's always a good way to market that. Yes, go with the alliterative. As Urban Meyer did with going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that was prominent in his mind as he accepted that offer.